I know we're in the middle of anime, but we have to take a break from that right now so that we can talk about the Avengers Age of Ultron. First and foremost, let me say, I really enjoyed Age of Ultron. There are going to be spoilers in this video. I want to make that clear right now. I thought, in my opinion, it was just as good if not better than the original. Now, admittedly, since the film has come out, there has definitely been a mixed reaction. Some people really like it, some people don't, and some people consider it right in the middle. That said, let's get rolling with what I think were the Avengers missteps. First up, I felt like that Strucker was underused. I feel like I could have used him as more of a secondary villain along with Ultron in place of two characters, that being the Maximoff twins. Now, personally, I was in the camp where it comes to Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver that if you can't use the X-Men license to just let it go. What I felt like they did well was they used enough of the ultimate origin for the characters that you bought it. But yes, I do feel like Baron von Strucker was definitely underused and there could have been more of him in this movie. That said, the opening action scene, admittedly, the CG on that particular section didn't really look super great, but it didn't look terrible. I've definitely seen worse out there. As far as things I felt like lacked, I would have liked to have seen the Hulk's vision, because over the course of the movie, Ultron has a plan to use the Scarlet Witch to make all of the Avengers see their greatest fear. And we never see what his is, we just know it makes him completely lose his shit. And honestly, as far as negatives in the movie, that's about all I can come up with. Now, let's talk about what I felt like they got correct. And first and foremost, that's the team dynamic. Unlike the first movie where you definitely felt like this was a team that was starting up, these people have clearly been working together for a long time, and you can feel that history not only in the dialogue, but in the subtle nuances of the way they act around each other. I'm also going to buck the trend of other reviewers and say that the Hulk Black Widow thing I felt like worked. At first I felt like it was a little forced, but by the end of the movie I bought it. I felt like it elevated both of their characters. And the reason for that is, you see that both of them, particularly Banner, has never really been able to let anybody in, and every time he does it ends badly. But I feel like through Natasha he has someone who he can let into his world, and she's strong enough to survive it. And I did like at the end where we see that finally, maybe the Hulk is becoming a little more self-aware. I know in the comics he's always been the get crazy go nuts guy, but I'm hoping going further in the franchise, maybe we'll see a movie where the Hulk is just a character, rather than being at some point the obstacle. Now as for Ultron, I felt like he was done very well. Going back and looking at the comics, you can see that there wasn't quite as much Tony Stark in him, because in the comic books Tony Stark did not build Ultron, Hank Pym did. But I felt like they did a good job, much like the comic book has a lot of Hank Pym in Ultron. In the film, he has a lot of Tony Stark, even if he doesn't like the comparison. He's also a lot funnier than I think a lot of people expected, myself included. My personal favorite being that at the end, when he's being thrown out of the airplane, he just says, "Oh, for God's sakes," because he's been beaten so many times, even he's willing to admit it's getting old. And that can be said of all the characters. Unlike the first film, I don't think there was a character I honestly felt like didn't need to be there. Hawkeye, who, let's be honest, was the running joke of the first film, I really felt like had a good personality, and if he doesn't come back, I feel like the character had a good ending.
If you go out there, you fight, and you fight to kill. Stay in here, you're good. I'll send your brother to come find you, but if you step out that door, you are an Avenger.
It was a feel-good story with him, and I'm glad we were able to see it told. I also like what they did with Captain America. This time, Captain America really feels like the leader of the team, as opposed to before where he was just the man out of time. When he gave an order, you may bicker about it, but you went to work. In fact, if I had one character that I honestly didn't like, not because the character was bad, I just don't like the way the character is, and that's Tony Stark. Now, this is nothing against the movie. I'm not saying the movie's bad. I'm saying the character is, I think, being driven towards a villainous role. He's almost becoming a mad scientist. He even refers to himself as a mad scientist at one point. Honestly, what they're doing with his character and his fear of the aliens after his experience with the wormhole feels like a very real interpretation of the way some Americans felt after the September 11th attacks, where it doesn't matter how you get the job done, you have to stop the enemy. It's an interesting way to go with it, and you can definitely see that in several scenes throughout the movie. I felt like with Bruce Banner they did a good job of showing the duality of his existence, the fact that he always is on edge if he actually snaps and loses himself. And while I'd like to see that go away, if only for 1 or 2 movies, to just see the Hulk being a strong fighter for the team as opposed to the obstacle, I do like the way that Mark Ruffalo plays it, much better than I did the last few people who have played the Hulk. Thor, I felt like it almost like a good chunk of his story was exited. Reason for that is 40 minutes of his story was cut completely from the film. So it felt like a lot of his screen time was basically just spent building up Ragnarok. But let's be honest, when he's on, he's funny. And finally, let's talk about Black Widow. Now, Black Widow is arguably my favorite Avenger. Reason being is because, much like Burton, she's a regular human. She doesn't have any special powers, she doesn't have any superhuman abilities. She's just a crack shot and an assassin. That's it.
Because she got a great ass!
And yet she's able to hold her own in this world populated with, as they put it, gods and monsters. And to me, that's an awesome character. It's the same reason why I liked Hawkeye in this movie, is the fact that they're both regular people, populated by the superhumans around them.
That ass, though.
Overall, this was an amazing movie in my opinion, and definitely gets me hyped for Captain America Civil War. But alright, that's enough Marvel fanboying for one day. Until next time, my name is Vega Goose saying thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Earth's mightiest heroes, cause Ultron Funk don't give it to you, cause Ultron Funk don't give it to you, cause Ultron Funk don't give it to you.